there are two very important subjects which are yet to be covered. Of course, there are many which will come up as we go on talking, but two of primary importance, duty and responsibility. I went abroad for the first time, I think, in 1948, when I was between 20 and 21 years old. I was a typical Indian college graduate, just passed out, more or less, and quite unused to the customs of the so-called elite, the educated, and the rich, because I never had been in a car before that. My only transport, or our only transport, were bicycles in Jabalpur, where we lived. In those days, we could buy a BSA bicycle for 22 rupees. You know, we had no bicycle industry in India. So although my father had a salary of about 120 rupees a month, he managed to buy all three brothers one bicycle each and had one for himself. I mean, one after the other. 22 was the highest price because it was a BSA. A Raleigh was 20 rupees and a Hercules was, I think, 18 rupees. We used to ride to school on that. Question of some 3 miles. If it had flat tires and we couldn't get them going, we used to walk. In the monsoon, we had occasionally to get a toga from the railway station, which was about 3 miles away. And the toga used to charge 6 annas to 8 annas, half a rupee, to come from the station and drop us at school. These were our means of conveyance in those days. Again, it was the same story when I was in Banaras to graduate. Bicycles. By then, cycle rickshaws had invaded the scene. I'm talking of 46, 47. And of course, there was a toga and a peculiar horse-drawn vehicle called the ekka, in which one person could sit. Of course, we usually sat 5 on it, because it had a central compartment about the size of this chair, and 2 wings on which 2 and 2, 4 people could sit. It was called the ekka. It could be very ornamental if rich people owned it and were driving their own horse. And it could be very humdrum, you know, something put together. And that was okay. So when I went to Bombay with its electric trains, suburban trains, with its cars, with the 2-decker, double-decker buses, it was completely different. And when I was selected to go to Yugoslavia for about a year's training, my uncle happened to be, my middle uncle, my father's younger brother, happened to come and stay in the Taj Mahal Hotel, which was in those days the best hotel. It still is. It is on the seafront, and there used to be a darwan, or what you would call a, you know, the man who waits at the gate and opens it, something like a concierge, I'm not sure. And they were generally tall Sikh gentlemen with big turbans, you know, with fermenting beards. He had called me for lunch. I remember I was walking up and down the pavement in front of the Taj Mahal Hotel for about 1 hour, because I had pajamas on and a shirt, and everybody was going in suits and, you know, fully decked ties and whatnot. I was quite unused to that sort of place. Suddenly, my uncle appeared on the steps. He said, "Idiot, I knew you would be measuring the pavement. Come with me." So that was the sort of fellow I was. And I was pushed into Europe, much against my will, hoping I had not had to go there. And with a ticket which cost 60 pounds, I think 61 pounds, which dropped me off at Naples. And this was in the year 1948, I think. And my entry into Europe was as somewhat traumatic experience because I had gone by boat, as the English say, or a steamer, And when we landed at Napoli, I had a big steel trunk because that's what we are used to in India. No sophisticated baggage. And a small attaché case, And the steel trunk had been broken because it was in the hold. It was not cabin baggage. And they had tied together with rope. I had managed to make friends with a companion on the way. So we were going together. And there was a bus. It was winter. We got into Naples, I think, on the 15th of December. Bitterly cold, chill wind. And we had no winter clothes to speak of. And one guy came along, very well dressed in camel hair, overcoat and things like that, And he offered to take us free to the hotel. I said, we have a hotel booking in a hotel called Terminus, near the railway station. And we said, no, thank you, because I was suspicious. How can anybody come and take two people free? In India, we are very suspicious of anything that's offered free. Because there's always a string attached, So we got into the bus. 20 minutes later, the bus was stopped because this man driving his Porsche car had stopped the bus. And he came again and said, gentlemen, I repeat my offer. I said, no, thank you, because I was more suspicious. Imagine a man following in his car 20 minutes just to stop my bus and offer me a transportation again. 40 minutes later, we were in the hotel. And there he was before us at the reception. And asking that man to cancel our reservation. I got very annoyed. I said, I'll call the police if you don't move out. Because imagine coming there, and this time is an offer to show us around all of, Napoli, Vesuvius, every sort of thing. Later on, I found out he was a sort of, homosexual addict who picked up young people of such places, offered them free transportation. You have the rest of the story. That was my first exposure to Europe. See, very unpleasant and made me more suspicious than ever of, what we can expect to find in foreign countries. Such things never happen in India. In India, on the contrary, even if a man is driving alone and you stop him and say, can you drop me, he will look at you with suspicion. Say, I'm sorry, no, but if you want, I'll give you a rupee for bus fare. So it was like that, you see, my first impression of Europe was very bad. It took me years to outgrow it. Fortunately, my successive business trips were business trips, and I went by air. I did travel to Europe at least twice by ship, up and down. And that was a very nice experience. On board, it was very nice. Why I'm saying this, at that age of 20, between 20 and 21, to be exposed to this sort of very unsavory and, if I may say, frightening to a timid fellow like me as I was then, it was, I think I still carry a bit of that around. Though I have revised my opinions completely because one sparrow does not make a summer. See? But on the contrary, as I have becoming more and more used to Europe and liking the friendly aspects in Europe and the people, their willingness to help, their ability to help, on the other side, these vices have been growing. Perhaps, nature intends my tolerance level to go up as that goes up. And that is part of my spiritual education and should do credit to my master for having changed me to that extent. Now we come to the crux of the matter, What are these two elements that are so important in spiritual life? I think I said that is duty and responsibility. I told you something about the Sanskrit sloka about duty to one's parents, Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava. The mother comes first, the father comes next. Then Acharya Devo Bhava, Guru. Then Atithi, the uninvited person who knocks your door at midnight. claiming succor. I once had a very sobering experience. One morning at 8 o'clock, I was standing at the gate of Gayatri, my home, when a German gentleman with a long beard came to the gate and said, partly in German, partly in English, "Can I stay here for a few days? I will sleep in the garden. I don't need food. I don't need anything. I just want 2 days or 3 days rest here because I have been on a retreat in Tiruvannamalai. And before I go on, I wish to rest here." I said, "Why outside in the garden? You are welcome to sleep inside the house. You are a welcome guest." And so he stayed in the room where I sleep now was given to him. Because my father, my wife, myself, and Krishna was about 5 at that time. We had ample accommodation for even 30, 40 people more. And he used to meditate from 4 o'clock in the morning till 7. Then he used to sit with us for breakfast. Very sparse eater. Lunch, probably he would eat 1 katori full of rice and dahi, curd. Nights, generally, he fasted. My father was quite opposed to my entertaining this man at home. He said, "You don't know him, you don't know from where he has come. You have to be careful of these so-called mendicants, who claim they are holy. He says he has come from Tiruvannamalai, Ramana Maharshi ashram. How do you know he's not a crook released from a German prison?" I said, "Come on. Surely you can judge a man with your heart. You are a Sahaj Marg Abhyasi, The funny thing was, he stayed 6 days because I kept extending my invitation. I said, "There's no hurry. You don't have to be compelled to leave. You don't have to feel compelled to leave. You can stay." And he stayed. On the day he was leaving, I was absolutely in tears. I had the peculiar feeling that he had been my father in another life. I don't know if this letter is there in the published letters. You haven't seen it. Maybe I didn't keep a copy because sometimes I was not able to write on carbon paper and things like that, And I wrote to Babuji. I said, "This happened. I was absolutely heartbroken when he left, a German gentleman, because I had the feeling that he was a father from a past existence." Babuji Maharaj said, "No, he was not. But there were other reasons for your feeling emotional and they are not important." He didn't explain it. Whenever he didn't want to explain, he would say it's not important. Now, why I'm saying this is, this inherent sense of hospitality, Atithi Devo Bhava, uninvited, perhaps unwanted, uncalled for, unplanned for. He comes and we accept him. This is typical of India, Indian culture, Indian hospitality. No questions asked, no reservations. You are one of us. Please come. Babuji was once caught in a storm, heavy, terrible cyclone. He had come with Kashiram Agarwal, one of our brothers who's no more, who was a resident of Shahjahanpur. Everyone, I think some of you would know him. Kashiram Agarwal had left him in Vijayawada, in Dr. Parthasathi's house, who was our center in charge. And he had gone off to attend a seminar of sorts in a place about 60 miles away. The seminar being about nature healing. Because he was a naturopath. The understanding was that he would appear on the day Babuji was supposed to leave. Babuji got into the train, expecting Kashiram would turn up, but the train moved out. He didn't bother because from Vijayawada to Madras is 5 or 6 hour journey. And we were supposed to meet him at the station. In between, a massive storm intervened. For 7 days, there was no power. In Vijayawada, there were floods. The river that goes through Vijayawada was in floods. Many houses in low-lying areas were underwater. There was no food, no electricity, nothing to be bought in shops. And, Babuji was stuck in the train just near a place called Ongol, where we have a big ashram now. 3 days, no news because he could not contact anybody. Railways were all down. There were no trains, no movement, no race, station master, nothing. On the third day, I decided to go to Ongol, where the train was said to be stuck, and moved out in a car. We left at about 3 in the afternoon. Only my wife was happy about my going. My father said, you will get caught in the floods, you are not coming back, you and your silly master, things like that, you see. He was concerned for his son. But my wife said, you go. You feel you have to go, you have to go. That's it. And we reached where the roads were deserted, the railway track was deserted, there was nothing on the station because we thought we would get some news. We reached Nellore. It was about 8 o'clock. No accommodation. Jam-packed. But fortunately, there was a police officer who was our Abhyasi. He was then the Deputy Inspector General there, or probably Superintendent of Police. I managed to contact him. And we went up a small hill where he found a room. We had bananas for dinner. Nothing else. And water. Next morning, we set out for Ongol, which was another hour's distance, No, I'm sorry. We had dinner and then I said we must go to Ongol somehow now. Because I had, heroic ideas of swimming across the flood and rescuing Babuji and whatnot. You know how these ideas come when your beloved is stranded somewhere. So we set out at about 9 o'clock. And few miles out of Vijayawada, north of Vijayawada, there was a river and a bridge. We were on the bridge. We had driven about 20 feet. I said, stop. We go back. My companion, the police officer, said, why? The bridge is there. I said, no, there's some problem. We cannot go. Next morning, we found the bridge had been washed away, just a few feet beyond where we had stopped. Had we proceeded, we would have been washed away. Surely Babuji's grace, you see. So I couldn't do anything. We had to return. 2 or 3 days later, the train was pulled back to Vijayawada because it could not proceed. The tracks had been washed away. The bridge was washed away. And then he went to Hyderabad and took a plane and arrived in Madras. By then, they were able to communicate from Hyderabad that he is coming. We were at the airport to receive him. And as he came out of the plane, in those days there was no security. I was at the plane to receive him at the ladder. As he came out, he very affectionately grabbed my hand and looked at me and said, I saw you there. You had come for me. How could he know? Because nobody knew except my family. No communication, telegraph lines down, telephone down, everything down. So you see, that is it's a mixture of duty, responsibility, and that which supersedes both of them, of which they are both part, love. Because when you love, there is duty and responsibility from you automatically. You don't feel this is my duty. You don't think this is my responsibility. A mother, when she feeds her children, even when she has no money to afford it, does not think it's my duty to feed my children, at least not in the Eastern cultures. She will give her life to somehow feed them. They will sell themselves if necessary to feed their children. And you say, oh, wonderful of you to do your duty. They will say, what duty? I have no duties. I love my kids. But you have sold yourself. Yes, he said, why not? If I had something else to sell, that too I would sell. See? So India is a land where this evil of prostitution is largely because of poverty. Too many children in the house. The girl goes out, sells herself, day after day, produces enough money to keep the family running. Father, ill health. Mother, unable to work because she has 6 children to be looked after at home. No money for school fees. Children running ragged like ragamuffins on the streets. That is duty. Duty without consciousness of what you are paying for it. That is dharma, you see. There are stories of, things being eaten up half to provide food for a hungry lion. things like that. We don't, think of these things as duty. Responsibility, but surely Chariji, she must have felt responsible for her children. I said, no, if it was merely responsibility, she could have easily got over it, thrown the children out under a big tree or left them on the doorsteps of a church, which is very common in the Christian context. So duty is that which has to be performed absolutely without any thought of your own self. It is not like, oh, I must be at the office at 8 o'clock, which is the Western idea of duty. I must be there. What have you to do? Well, my managing director is there and you know how it is. I used to admire these nurses very much, in hospitals, how self-giving they are. But when I found nurses in, again I have to unfortunately mention America. It is not a sense of, their sense of duty is a superficial sense. They have it, but it is superficial. I am paid, so I must work for my pay. So my 8 hours are over, the patient is dying, my relief will come and she will look after it. So the Western idea of duty is to give something in return for what you get. Therefore, you have this rather unsavory habit of giving a Christmas gift to somebody and he giving you a Christmas gift back. It's an obligation. But Chariji, I cannot receive and not give something in return. So I have often asked my friends in Europe and America, suppose somebody saves your life, what will you give? Can you replace it with a whiskey bottle or a Schaefer's pen or a Tissot watch and say thank you for saving my life? And this thank you is so superficial. It is from the lips but not from the heart. If it had to be from the heart, the Western culture would not insist on saying thank you for every silly thing. You get a glass of water, thank you, and you have to put on a smile with it. How is the soup? Oh, excellent, wonderful. Really? Of course. Could you please give me the recipe, you see? And that recipe is to enforce your statement that it was excellent. No, the hostess is supposed to think it was truly excellent. She has asked me for the recipe. And she has to say, oh, I have never given it to anybody, I got it from my grandmother. But since you like it so much, I'll give it to you. Superficial, superficial, superficial. In Europe, when you get a gift, you have to open it immediately and admire it. Otherwise, they feel insulted. I didn't know this first. So we put it away, like we do in India. In India, it's an insult to open it in the presence of the donor or gifter. Because they don't want anybody to know what they have given, because they give it from the heart. You don't expose your heart in front of strangers. You see how topsy-turvy these cultures are, invertendo. So once somebody asked me, I have to go to open it. I said, why? I can open it. No, but Chariji, I want to see how you like it. And often I have believed, I don't want to mention something else, make it worse, but maybe in private. In India, if you open it, it's an insult. It's as if you're wanting to see what they have given and evaluating, them by their gift. This is exemplified in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says, Patram, Pushpam, Phalam, Toyam. Yo me bhaktya prayachati. Patram means a leaf. Pushpam, a small flower, tiny flower. Phalam, a fruit. Toyam, a few drops of water. Offered with bhakti, with love and devotion, I accept, says Lord Krishna. I don't want grandiose presents, rich gifts, chains of gold and diamonds, like the Aga Khan is wearing against diamonds and gold every so often. These are simple offerings. You can just pluck off a flower and take it to the temple and offer. And it is to be done In the Bible, you have the echo of this sentiment. Let not thy left hand know what thy right hand is given. But in practice, it is ignored. So you see, again, this idea of giving so that nobody knows except the recipient. That preserves a certain holiness, a certain sacredness associated with the gift of love. I understand, I believe that this is what makes sex also sacred and holy, that it must not be in a profane atmosphere. It must be in a place of sanctity, purified, and out of eyesight of all but God. You know, when we have our Indian marriages, the ritual of the first night, or as they call it in India rather loosely, or consummation of the marriage, as it is often known, is performed on a different day. This is not a question of buying a horse and mounting it and riding it furiously. So, here you buy the horse, rest it, groom it, let it go around your estate, get familiar with it. Then you gently mount, go at a walk, then at a trot, then at a gallop. So in our marriages, there is this, it is called the Shanti Kalyanam, you know, the marriage of peace, that which produces peace. There are again rituals in the morning, and that night the couple are led into a bedroom specially prepared. There's a picture of God. There are flowers, perfume everywhere, agarbatti, and there they consummate their marriage in a spirit of holiness, sanctity, not carnality, not mere carnality. That the expression of love on a separate plane has to be a carnal expression was for the purposes of fulfilling nature's requirement of procreation. That a ceremony is done soon after the marriage to sanctify this procedure is because there is an injunction that you have a duty to give a son to prosper your race further, propagate your race into the future. I have a duty to what I have received, that I shall put it back into the stream of life. Children are not born out of, casual liaisons or for the sake of pleasure, so that the children say, oh, I didn't want to be born. Something you hear very often in the Western world. I didn't want to be there. My dad had a bit of fun, and well, here I am. You never hear this in the Indian continent. So you see, when it is purified, sanctified, they are introduced to this new relationship, essentially a carnal relationship, transformed into something holy, something not to be afraid of, something not to be hated, something not also to be loved, except as a duty at appropriate times when the next progeny is desired. So you see what the meaning behind all this. Today it has become a matter of pleasure. I remember when I was in Yugoslavia, we used to have Saturday dances there in the factory. I never attended. Once they had planned to kidnap me and make me dance, I locked myself up in my room. Because I was always afraid that if you touch a woman, a flame bursts up. And I was only 21. One of my friends came and said, oh, if you are thinking of protection, Chariji, I have 6 in my pocket. I said, why do you carry 6? He said, Bogami in Yugoslavia. He said, Bogami. One chance I will surely get. I may have a second and a third too, so I can't find any at night. So I had 6. So that is the culture. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. So I asked Babuji, why this tremendous pull towards sex? Because I remember André Poré, France. He once came to Babuji when we were in his house and said, Master, why is this human foolishness that we waste our life from 16 to 60. I had to explain to Babuji what exactly he meant. He said, it is foolishness as you have yourself said, Mr. Andre. I asked Babuji, what exactly is due to? He explained to me that on the right side of the sternum, there's a cord, and there's a point in it which has the power of attraction. This is what attracts the opposite sex, and it is mainly the female. And he said it is almost irresistible because sex is the one function in which all five senses are involved. In eating, taste. And of course, because the European food is so tasteless, they have added sight to it by garnishing, by colorful decoration, by arranging things beautifully on a plate. Mere carrot and boiled potatoes, so beautifully arranged that you will think it's a dish from God. So there you have the imposition of vision on taste. In some places, they add spices to it to make it savory also. You can smell the food. But in sex, all five senses. Whispered, sweet nothings, as they say. Sense of touch, of course. Sense of smell, perfumes, flowers. No? So, sight, sound, taste, touch, and what was the fifth one? Smell, hearing. Shabda sparsha rasa rupa gandha me siddhyantam, says the Vedas. Shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandha. He said because of all these five senses coming together in this only activity in which the five unite, it is almost overpowering. I said, why? Why has nature given this special attribute to this activity? He said, because nature wants its purpose fulfilled, that of procreation, of continuing the race into the future. It is not nature's fault. You have your own purpose, nature has her purpose. Her purpose is to procreate, your purpose is to not. You have the right to not procreate. Self-control. See? He said, nature doesn't interfere if you don't do it. If you do it, nature doesn't stop you. It is in your hands to decide what you want to do. I said, if you say it is almost irresistible, how to do it? He said, well, meditation helps you, cleaning helps you, cleaning removes these tendencies. Meditation takes your mind away from all worldly activities, including this. Therefore, he said, avoid going anywhere after you come to me. Go straight home. I said, why? He said, when you come, you can look at anything you like, because after all, when you come to me, I clean you, I prepare you. If you are ready, I move you to the next point. Now, in going back is the danger that if you stray from the path, you lose all that I have given you and perhaps more. So he always cautioned people, go back home straight. Don't go for a holiday, don't go picnicking, don't go anywhere. But everybody wants to go somewhere, They come to India and then they see Babuji, and then they go to Delhi, go to Taj Mahal. Then they go to Jaipur, look at the camels, look at the desert, sleep in the desert. And by the time they go home and they write a letter to Babuji, oh, I had such a wonderful condition, Babuji, in Shahjahanpur. I'm sorry to say I don't feel the same here now in Calais, in Paris, in wherever it is. And Babuji said, look here what they are writing. Yes, I said, you asked me to read it, I saw it. This is the problem, you see. They travel everywhere they like, and they don't have the ability to retain their condition. So they lose it. I said, how to retain the condition? Suppose you have to go somewhere. How to retain the condition? And he gave a tip, very valuable tip. Enormously valuable tip. He said, wherever you go, whenever you go, feel that the master is going before you, ahead of you. Especially if you are going to a hotel, see that he is entering the room ahead of you, the room is automatically purified. I had this problem because when I used to go to Tirupati, I used to go almost every weekend to see Dr. Valachari. I had a room in a lodge, as they say in India, It's something like a pension in Europe. And I could not sleep whole night. Next morning I was yawning and sleepy, bleary-eyed. Babuji said, because he was with Dr. Rajagopalachari. He said, what happened to you? I said, I could not sleep. Then he told me, imagine that I am walking ahead of you. When you enter the room, I am already inside. And it works. I realized, that in India, the older people have a custom. They are always dressed in a towel like this, They take out the towel and dust the place where they are going to sit. There is no dust. It is a sort of ritual purification which they had been taught. You understand? South India is very prevalent. Older people, orthodox people. So when we are conscious of that, it works two ways. His protection is with me. Also, my attention is always on him. I cannot look here and there. And he has written about one case, where somebody goes and sees a pretty girl dancing on the street. He is tempted to look, but he has to go. But having gone 10 feet, he walks back to see it. Then goes and comes back again. And then he goes off with the girl. He said, look here, you are making it stronger and stronger every time. I said, but suppose it happens, what should we do? He said, when you look at her, by all means, you must admire her beauty. There's nothing wrong. But you must thank God for it because He is the creator of that beauty. Then it has no effect on you see. Absolutely no effect. Then you have done your duty in praising God's creation and you are serenely going. That nach, as it is called in India, that dance, has no more effect on you than anything else. Now the way to Babuji's house was through a dirty, narrow, brick-paved lane with the noxious, canals, right? Small gutters right on both sides. Filthy, it's indescribably filthy. We never noticed because we were thinking of him. Whereas I had once a European friend whom I took. He managed to step on something and he was, annoyed. He said, I just bought these shoes, 200 pounds I paid for them. And you know what he did? He threw it away. He said, I'll never wear them again. A British gentleman. Leather shoes, beautiful leather shoes. If they had fit me, I would have taken them and washed them and put them on. It is clean. If you can put your sneakers into the wash, in a washing machine. We, in those places, it is very natural to step on such stuff. You just submit on the sand or the mud and go on serenely, you see. It is also part of nature. Everybody does it, no? It's like that old song, the bees do it, the birds do it. We all do it. So what is there to be ashamed of? Of course, see, modern civilization, modern health says, don't expose these things because you will fall sick. I once had a long talk with a German lady doctor in Munich, Gerti Putter. We were taking a walk of about 4 or 5 kilometers. And this subject came up. She said, oh, India, Chariji, I love it, but especially when I go to see Master, this sort of thing. I said, Gerti, in light you have a spectrum. Violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. None of them is beautiful, none of them is dirty, none of them is ugly. They are what they are, a spectrum. Why don't you imagine a spectrum of smells? From the absolutely rotten, like a rotten egg, to the absolutely divine, like some perfume in Paris. Why don't you imagine? She said, but we've been trained to see these things as dirty. I said, untrain yourself. That is also part of life. This is all. You have a jasmine, which you love to stoop and smell, and you have this. Just think of it as part of a spectrum. And if all these are put together, what do you get? You put together all the colors, you get white light. You put together all the smells, it's a divine essence. Smellless smell, Similarly, taste. So this was the sort of training we got from my master, merely by visiting him in Shahjahanpur. No power in summer, and when in Shahjahanpur power went, it was a matter of 36 hours before it was restored. these sort of fans, day and night, 4 of us fanning Master. One wouldn't do, no fans. Even if there had been electricity, no fans. No question of ironing your clothes. We just washed them, pulled them to shape and hung them, and we wore them. We melded with the crowd, We were part of them. We were part of the humanity of India. When Babuji went, nobody said anything to him. Nobody knew he was a master. Nobody knew what he was. He didn't care who thought of what about him. Totally unself-conscious. No, self-consciousness is bad because we have no right to think of ourselves. Human beings are not born to think of themselves. Because when you think of yourself, you think of yours, mine, as I said in an earlier talk, me and mine. If nature provides everybody, why should I worry what nature will not give me? Nature will give me what I need. And the more I think of myself, the more I feel insecure. I have seen the poor people, like rickshaw pullers who earn 5 rupees a day, 10 rupees a day. They have no concern for the future. He has his rickshaw. What will you do tomorrow? He says, God will give me. Today I had 20 rupees. I gave my wife 10 rupees to keep because poor thing, she has had no money for months. And the rest we bought food. And what did she do? She bought herself a brass ring and a brass nose ring, which she had never had before. 10 rupees. But don't you want to save? Save for what, he says. Where will I keep it? I sleep under the tree. My wife sleeps in that hut. If I save, there are others who are poorer than me. They will rob me. No saving. Enough unto the day is the evil thereof. I have changed it to enough unto the day is the good thereof. And the Christian prayer says, give us this day our daily bread, not our weekly bread or my monthly bread or our annual bread. Give us this day our daily bread. So these dictates of religion, of various religions, they're all the same, You are entitled to the moment's need. You have to breathe. Can you store up breathing and breathe tomorrow for today or today for tomorrow? You are dependent on your next breath from me. And you are laying up your bread and butter storage and your gold in your banks for what? So you see, the Indian culture has never bothered about the future. Our future in spiritual India is restricted to liberation. Because in my life, in my temporal life as a human being, there are going to be problems every day. Existential problems. Not of where I am going to find my, caviar tomorrow. Should I go to the Feriaristetsen or something like that for caviar? Or should I go to the Taj Mahal in Munich, which has been newly built? That is not our concern. Food has been of little concern because the cheapest food we eat, good quality, but no ostentation, no dressing up. The poor man's roti has no ghee, rich man's roti has ghee. That's all about, the difference. So we have no concern. Our only concern is spiritual. How to have final emancipation out of this life. Where even faith I don't need, that I will be provided for tomorrow. Where I don't need any guarantees that my next breath will be there. Because there I don't breathe, there I don't eat, there I don't defecate. So the Indian longing, the Indian concern has always been how at the end of this life, whenever it may end, I can find this liberation, this moksha as we call it. See, I am reminded of a story of an emperor. He was a tyrant. And everybody wanted him to die and go to hell. But he had a fish pond in which he used to feed his fish every day with love. When he died, he went up for judgment. All the voices were against him. Send him to hell, God, they said. And just as he was about to sentence him, there were a few tiny voices from some tiny things in one corner of his divine, court hall. They said, Majesty, we would like to be heard. Yes, your divinity, he has looked after us with love, fed us daily. That also may be taken into consideration. So God said, yes, you are taken into consideration. He shall have 5 minutes in heaven, the rest in hell. He can choose which he wants first. And one wise fish came unto his ear and said, choose heaven first, because when you are in heaven, you cannot be removed. You see, that is how even the smallest good repays us. But not with the idea that I will have good from this. I don't give to a beggar saying, oh God, remember this. Otherwise it becomes like the scouts, you know. You are a one good deed for the day to be written in your calendar and shown to the scoutmaster. Unthinking charity, unthinking help, unthinking, self-giving. As Babuji said, Babuji's idea of charity was completely different. He said, your duty to your family is paramount. If your family is in need, you must not give in charity even one penny. But what about charity? That's not charity, he said. You can't rob from Peter to pay Paul. If you are taking away from your family, what about your duty to your family, your responsibility to your family? You married, nobody foisted marriage on you. You have children which you love. Look after them first. So this is where they say, charity begins at home. Then it goes beyond your doors. Still, if you have enough, it goes beyond your village. As I said the other day, charity must finally extend to the whole universe. And that charity can come only from a divine vessel containing unlimited sources, which is the heart. Love alone we can give. And then it becomes no more charity. Now when you have love in your heart and it is only love, you become love, which Master was. There's no question of loving you or him or her. It flows. Like honey tastes sweet to everybody. Like lime juice is bitter to everybody. Like sugar is sweet to everybody. Now it manifests its own quality of the self. Our aspiration is to become like that. This is Sahaj Marg. This is duty. This is selflessness. This is love. Love rules all. When you have love, duty, responsibility, you may view them as separate things, you see. It is like a symphony in which you don't distinguish which is the do and which is the me. Everything flows into the next note. And if they don't, there's no harmony. If there's no harmony, it's no music, it's just noise. Now we have seen what duty and responsibility should mean to the Abhyasi. Duty done without consciousness that it is my duty. Responsibility handled without the idea that I am responsible, I have to do this. The difference between duty and responsibility is nothing more than this. Duty is something I have to do. Responsibility is something that makes me do it. The combination of the two is the performance of right duty as defined in the Gita. I may have a sense of responsibility, but I don't do anything. And that is the man who always worries, I should have done this, I haven't done it, I should have done that, I didn't put my son through school, I never gave enough attention to my daughter, no, she has run away with some traveling salesman, no. That is responsibility without duty. The other one who does it and curses, damn you, I have to spend $200 on you every month, He does his duty but no sense of responsibility. He thinks he is doing it from some ill-gotten wealth that he has stolen. And that is not responsibility. You understand? Now when we come to the Master, I found something very unique and remarkable. I found in him no sense of duty or responsibility except when he taught us. I remember on one occasion there were people for a whole week and he was not well or he was preoccupied with something, I don't know. No sittings. One Abhyasi from some place in the, Assam or somewhere, he complained. He said, we have been here for a week and Babuji has not even given us one sitting. Unfortunately, Babuji heard it. And this man went on to add, he has no sense of duty. We come all the way, spending hundreds of rupees. So Babuji immediately said, look here, I have no duty towards anybody except towards my Master. What he orders me to do, I do. I have no obligation towards abhyasis. I have no duty towards abhyasis. In fact, I don't know what my abhyasis are, who they are. When they come, I serve my master, but by doing his, directives, performing the action that he wants me to do, and that is it. So later on, I had a private talk with him. I said, Babuji, can you explain this little more? He said, I am serving only one, and that is my master. I love my master, so I serve him. I don't work for pay or salary. Therefore, I live in his remembrance, because I can only think of my beloved and nothing else. Constant remembrance for me is a natural thing. I don't have to practice it. He said, a mere human male loves a mere human female, and he thinks of her all the time. Can't you not think of your master? I said, Babuji, there's this problem that you are a man. Had you been a woman, I suppose things would have been different. He said, yes, they would have loved the female, but not the female master. You see? This is like, preferring to have water in a gold cup rather than in a tin cup. Then I said, why this 1 week? I said, excuse me, I'm asking, but why this 1 week you're not getting sittings? I'm asking on behalf of that man. I don't care. He said, I'm telling you, Lalaji told me you need rest. Your brain is tired. Therefore, I'm resting. Even my rest I take when he commands. See? I cannot rest without his command. I cannot even sleep without his command. I cannot eat without his command. When he says, Ramchandra, eat, I eat. You see, such absolute conformity to your master's wishes, I wouldn't call it obedience. It is like a dog waiting patiently for its feed. One day the owner may forget. The dog just quietly lies down patiently and goes to sleep. When at night it is fed, it wags its tail, barks in gratitude and eats. It doesn't tell its owner, you didn't feed me this afternoon, give me 2 helpings now. That is why Babuji said, reverse dog, D-O-G, and you get G-O-D, God. He said, we must have that love, totality of love for the master. Obedience, not as obedience, but as a waiting for his instructions to do whatever you have to do. It is waiting, waiting, waiting all the time. When the order comes, do, you do. If he says sleep, I go to bed. If he says you're working too much, you're going to fall sick, I fall sick and I lie down. I don't pray for my health. I remember once a very moving incident. He was somewhere in Agra or Patna, I'm not sure. And he was asked to go to the station and take a train to Agra. Somebody, Ishwar Sahaj, I think, or somebody was with him, went through the timetable and there was no train at that time at 11 o'clock. He said, I've been ordered, I go. So he and this man and 1 or 2 other people who were accompanying him went to the railway station and sat. They said, we have come to take the train to Agra. They said, there's no train now. The next train is at 8 o'clock this evening. The others advised him to go back. He said, no, I sit here. Lalaji's instructions. Within 15 minutes, as train comes, and it is announced that this train is going to Agra. So this man who said there is no train on the timetable went to the station master and said, what is this? There is no train on your timetable. He said, I got orders from the district superintendent of this railway to run a special train now. I don't know what for. And Babuji got in and went to Agra. This cannot be rationally explained. It cannot be explained to the satisfaction of a skeptic or unbeliever who says, but there has got to be a reason, Effect follows cause. Yes, I said, but there was a cause. The superintendent of the railways ordered it. Yes, but why did he order it? I said, your mother feeds you. Do you ask why? No, but Chariji, that's not a satisfying explanation. Then I said what Babuji told me, that there can be causes without effects. There can be effects without causes, which is even more difficult to understand. What is an effect without a cause? We know. We can apply for a job, but we don't get it. We run for the train, but we lose it. No? No effect. Cause without effect. Effect without cause. But how to explain that there can be effects without cause? Well, a simple one would be that we have a baby which we never expected. Nobody plans for a baby, at least not those who are happy, well established. I mean, well established internally, you see. They just obey the dictates of nature and the baby results. A product of love. It has no timetable. Only those who are unable to have children are agonizing all the time and trying to have children. Desperately trying. So you see, this makes some sort of logic, even to an illogical mind. So Babuji did his duty to his master, which was obedience, love, faith, action. He has crystallized Sahaj Marg teaching into three aspects, you see. Love for the master, obedience of the master, satsang with the master. Now the third aspect is most important, especially for discipline within the mission. Satsang with the master. Everybody says, but I never go to Rajagopalachari. I don't have enough money to go to India, you know. How can I have satsang with the master? There lies the rub. Babuji said, remember that no preceptor can transmit to you unless I give the transmission. So whoever may be sitting in front of you transmitting to you, it is really the master. So if you remember that it is the master who is transmitting, it becomes satsang with the master. Something which is impossible to believe, therefore we don't understand, therefore we don't obey, and we think, oh, thank you, Mr. So-and-so, for giving me the sitting. I understand how difficult, you know, you have to take time off from your family. Common Western argument. I can't take more than an hour of Chariji from my family. My wife gets very upset. Here, every time I had to go with Babuji, I left my wife at home. I was away for months sometimes. The funny thing is, if you leave your wife alone to earn money, nobody objects. Oh, he's on tour. But if you are going to give sittings, sitting all the time, but don't you have any time for me? Don't I deserve some attention? So if people remember that it is always satsang with the master, whoever may be sitting in front of you, then this third thing, which is normally troublesome and leads to so many problems in the mission, that he is a good preceptor, he is a bad preceptor, you know, I like him, I don't like her, snooty, this, that and the other. Everything will disappear. We will have absolute silence, we will have absolute trust, we will have faith. Most of all, we will have discipline and obedience. When the preceptor says, come at 6 o'clock, they will say, it's the master's order. I must be there. I cannot, disobey the master. So, love for the master. Yeah, but I had once to tell an unsavory story by people who were upset in Madras. They used to go to temples and say, oh, but we really think the master is there, we worship. I said, thinking and believing are two different things. And knowing is an even more difficulty. I know that this is master in the form of Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, whoever. Can you do it? They said, what do you mean? I said, there was a distant relative who was a postmaster in India. During World War II, he was sent on duty to Egypt, British Postal Services, as a wartime postmaster. And obviously, he was enjoying himself with Egyptian girls because his wife back in Tanjore, south of 300 miles south, She started getting letters, insinuations, gossip. So she wrote a letter to him. She said, my dear husband, I'm sorry to hear so many things about you. What is going on? He wrote back and said, my darling wife, whatever I am doing, with whomever I may be doing it, I'm only thinking of you. I'm quoting. This was way back in 42 or 43, maybe 45, I'm not sure. When I said this story, my audience was in uproar, my abhyasis of those days. How can you tell such a story in a satsang? I said, why not? It makes a point, you will never forget it. Isn't it? And you can contrast this with another story about G.I. Joe, who had just got married in the US and had been sent on duty to Japan. He was very desolate, very lonely, and his letters to his wife reflected this. Then slowly he said, this week I went to this island, next Saturday he went to this island. Then he said, oh, she's wonderful company, she takes me in her car. And there was more of her than of himself in the few subsequent letters. So one day she was desperate and she sent him a telegram. Darling, what has she got that I ain't got? He sent back a telegram saying, nothing, honey, nothing, but she's got it here. This story too I told in satsang. I said, you cannot have master here and claim that you saw him in the temple unless it is the truth of your heart that whatever you see is the master. As it is said in the Gita, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mahi pashyati. He who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, such a man never lets go of me, I never let go of him. If you are in that condition, why do you have to go to a temple to worship at all and see master there? Why not sit at home and see master in his chair? So you see, we are all practicing hypocrisy when we claim such things. It is like that, Chinaman who was baptized. Ling Yu became John Chinaman. No meat on Fridays. 20 years later, one Friday, father was away in Canton. This fellow was in Beijing, Peking as it was then called. And father was not there. This fellow was taking a walk, thinking of all the meat that he cannot eat today. But he saw big restaurants. In China they have all glass and things displayed in dishes. He saw Peking duck, he saw the roast of this, roast that, fish. He went in and ordered the whole thing. As he was eating, father walked in. He had unexpectedly come, seen John and walked in. He said, John, you are eating meat. What day is it today? He said, Friday, father. Yes, but you are eating meat on Friday. You know it is not allowed. John, no eat meat. No, you are also telling a lie, John. I see that you are eating duck and fish and goose and chicken. Father, 20 years back you take little water, Pringle, Ling you become John Chinaman. Today I take little water, Pringle, everything become vegetable. You see, telling stories of the hypocrisy of religion. I will absolve thee of thy sins. See? No Christian who goes to church has ever believed in this absolution. Confessional. No Christian has ever believed that if you confess, you can get. Psychologically, if you really pour your heart out to somebody in whom you have trust and faith, yes. Here you are afraid to confess. What will happen? You are afraid that this man's prayer may not work. I absolve thee of thy sins, you see. So they are afraid when they come out, they feel insecure, they lose their faith in God. Why doesn't God send me a message? Will He give me some message that this is true? Nothing happens. Babuji says, the past cannot be changed. What we have done cannot be undone. Even Hinduism speaks of prayaschitta. That means, seeking absolution by offerings, by rituals. It will not work. He says the only way it will work is to clean out the effect of what you have done, cleaning. If you can find a capable master who can do this cleaning, it is absolution, it is cleaning, it is creating a new future for yourself. If that cannot be done, there is nothing on earth that can save you from this. So we come back to cleaning and to all these, practices of Sahaj Marg, and how Babuji lived free of the ideas of duty and non-duty, violence and non-violence. I told you when he had to do something, he had to do it. Once somebody asked him why a woman cannot be a master, why always men? He said the female heart was created for love. It cannot destroy. Therefore, a woman cannot be a master because a master's work can involve destruction. One of my dear sisters, Sister Kasturi, was very angry when she heard this. She said, but Babuji, that is not fair. She said, in God, there is no idea of fairness. In God's idea, there is only doing, and who can do and what he or she can do. See? So we have so many factors which we have to take into consideration when thinking of the Master, when being with him, when living with him, accepting him, finally losing yourself in him, which is the goal of Sahaj Marg practice.